So I have had the privilege of working with more and more salon owners over the past couple months, and I have been really, really enjoying it because myself as a leader and somebody with a team and who's had a even larger team than I have now, I'm obsessed with leadership and I'm obsessed with the problems and challenges when it comes to growing and managing a team. And I personally have had like a lot of difficult experiences and hard lessons to learn myself and continuously have hard experiences and lessons to learn myself from a leadership perspective that have allowed me to really help a lot of salon owners within our specific space and industry and within my coaching empower their teams and do really really beautiful amazing things. Like we have a mastermind member who is getting new stylists in the door and they are immediately making like an insane amount of money right out of beauty school, and then therefore the salon owner gets to make more money and everybody profits and wins at the end of the day. And it has just been a lot of fun. But one of the biggest things and one of the biggest challenges that I recurringly see with salon owners is how do I get my team on board with a change that I have going on, or how do I get them to take the initiative that I'm looking for them to take? Or maybe even if you are an independent stylist listening to this, or just a stylist in general, how do we get a change to land well with our clients? Or how do we get clients to naturally be motivated or act how we would like them to act, basically, in order for us to make our jobs easier or to be able to serve them better? And I think that that's what all this really comes down to at the end of the day is like, as a leader, your job is to make it so you set up an environment to be able to serve the people around you the best that you possibly can. And therefore, you need to take full responsibility for if they are not given the things that they need to be able to show up to do that for you and give you those things to be able to do that job easily. So, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about how we can get your stylist on board and taking initiatives themselves, and how we can get any clients on board with any changes or things that you'd like to make or change in your salon business. So, with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Jodie, Miss Jodie Brown, so that way she can lead me through the conversation today.
Okay, I'm super excited about this conversation. I think you're so right that there's so many similarities in terms of the psychology between team members and clients and just like getting people on board essentially with what it is that you want to do. And so I know the first thing that we wanted to talk about today is, did you hire or attract the right person into your business? And starting with that as kind of the baseline question, if you're having issues with getting people on board with the changes that you want to make.
Yeah, because it really does come back to this, which is like such a shitty answer, right? Because when normally when people come to me and I start coaching them, it's like obviously you probably have like an existing team, you have an existing clientele. And so it's like you're working with what you're working with, right? So I'm not discrediting that. Like there's ways that we can manage that, but I guess the question kind of becomes, at what point do we decide that this person is just actually not the best fit for our business or our company, right? Like, at what point is it, okay, I actually did not hire the right person. And no matter what tactic, strategy, communication style I put into place, that nothing is going to change because it's not the right person. So it really goes back to the very beginning. So, and the reason I say this is because let's say that you are having a difficult time with somebody being cleanly in your salon. So maybe they are not, cleaning up their trays very efficiently or consistently in between clients, or they're leaving color at the color bar, um, or leaving a shampoo bowl dirty, whatever it may be, right? Let's say that cleanliness is the issue. If you, as a company, have the core values of cleanliness, then what you want to be doing is you want to be hiring people with the similar core values. And so having a documented understanding of what your core values are at the very beginning, and then making sure that they're things that are not just thrown to the wayside or just like on a poster board in the break room that never get read, that they're actually something that you consistently activate and that you have written out and documented and also revisited multiple times, and then leading every single decision, including hiring, through that lens. That makes it so you create a really, really beautiful and amazing team that actually does the things that you would like them to do, or you attract a clientele who is aligned with you, who is willing to do the things that you would like them to do. And so, with the cleanliness example, when you hire somebody who has that same core value, if that person cares as much as you about the salon being clean because they know that this creates a great client experience for them, it creates a great working environment for everybody else, then you can actually have a productive conversation. If somebody does not share that same core value and they don't just say, it's not about them just saying that they have the core value. It's like you can, in an interview with different types of questions, you can like actually like really tell if somebody actually has that core value, right? Um, if that somebody has that same core value, you're able to have productive conversations because they actually want the same things. So it may not be that the person doesn't want the same thing as you. Maybe they are just ignorant to what behavior they have or that they're putting in place or they're doing, whatever, that is actually working against that core value. And you need to make them aware of it. And we also need to provide them with the resources or the coaching and leadership and facilitation to actually fulfill the exemplification of the core value. So that is your job as a leader, is to make it so you are coaching and giving people everything that they need to actually fulfill the behavior that you're trying to have them do or how you wanting them to behave within your company. But you can't do that if the person does not believe the same things that you do, because all of our behaviors go back to our thinking, right?
100%.
So, like, the reason I decide to get onto a podcast and yap to all of you guys is because I think and I believe that this stuff is very important for the industry to hear, because I love taking care of people and I love this industry and I love empowering it, right? But I could also just do this podcast because it's a important part of my business, right? So then therefore it's just a behavior, and so the thinking now is, okay, I'm doing this just because it's a part of the business and it's essential for what I need to do.
Right.
And that type of encouraged behavior is not behavior that's going to be done very well.
Right.
It's
Right.
going to be something that feels forced. It's going to be something that is going to be done at the bare minimum. It's just
Mhm.
doing it because I have to, and I'm scared of what happens if I don't do it.
Right.
However, if I'm doing this because of the belief that it is important and that I love it and that it's making a bigger impact, right? Then I'm going to approach it with a lot more intention and I'm going to do it a lot better because there's positive enforcement in me doing this. So, a lot of the time what we're trying to do is we're trying to change behavior instead of changing thinking. And thinking changes the behavior in a much better and more productive way.
Right. One of the things that you said when we were planning this episode that I thought was so well put is that, like, in with leadership now, like the evolution and where we're at societally, you can't just expect people to blindly follow orders anymore. Like, because of what you just said. It's like, okay, if the motivation is I'm just scared of what will happen if I don't do this, like there's not going to be that core like belief that this is important to do, right? So that's when it's like, okay, the second you step outside the salon, the things that are important to you are no longer happening because there's no longer that fear. So it's like you're almost like getting yourself into a position where you're going to have to micromanage forever. Otherwise, it's not going to get done. And so the talk a little bit about like the why behind the things that you're doing and make and how you can kind of bring your team in on understanding why something's important versus just like you have to do this because I said so.
100%. And then if somebody has the why, then they're able to actually take it further than you can. So that's like one of the most beautiful things about this approach is like thinking about the core values, leading through the core values, hiring with the core values, is that like your goal as an entrepreneur is for you to be as scaled above the company as possible, whether that be to be removed from the company and to be able to make as much money by working the least amount, and or be able to focus on more high level tasks that actually grow the company much faster than the medial smaller tasks that are just maintaining the business. And so when you have a team that has these core values, they understand the why, then they are going to naturally find ways to make those different things in the space better by themselves and even better than you can, because that's when you get to take advantage of the fact that you have multiple beautiful brains who are in your business, who are in the weeds of it every single day. They have their own experiences, their own ideas, their own backgrounds, right? Like they all get to contribute to that success and like the beauty because you are only one brain. But imagine if you have a ton of them that are all aligned with the same vision and mission and core values, and they can only add to the experience, but you can't expect anybody to do that or even get better than you or come up with better ideas than you. First off, of course, like I said, if you don't hire that from the very beginning, or if you don't allow for the facilitation of that, if you are always like death gripping everything and you're the one coming up with the solutions for everything, then yes, this just becomes you yapping at everybody and just telling everybody what to do all the time. And oftentimes, that is not what's going to get somebody to take initiative and actually naturally want to do these things, right?
100%.
So, with that being said, how do we actually get people involved, right? Because that's where that flip and that switch actually happens is when you start to allow your team to have more ownership over the behavior that they would like to that you would like to see happen more often. So, an example of this is we'll go back to the cleanliness situation. You will sit down with the employee who has not been fulfilling these core values, and you'd be like, hey, friend, so I'm going to have every employee self evaluate themselves on a scale of 1 to 5 for each of our core values here today. Okay. And by the way, this is something that we should be doing on a consistent basis. We should be doing this in our team meetings. We should have exercises around our core values. And so you have your employees maybe in your one-to-one on a consistent basis. They give themselves a 1 through 5 on cleanliness. So then that way you're gaining information about where their head is at as far as how they feel they're doing. And that's super important information because if you want to meet someone in the middle, you need to know where they're at first to be able to get to that middle, right? Otherwise, you're not going to be able to create a roadmap because you'll be talking at them instead of starting from where they're at to bring them to where you want them to be. So, having them self evaluate is giving them the opportunity to first self reflect and maybe find the problem and bring to you the problem. So, that makes your job very easy. And then the self reflection by itself is going to naturally make somebody behave better and because they're actually thinking about it, right? So let's say cleanly person, let's say I was a tornado. Like this is very much me because I make ADHD and I'm just like nuts. That's honestly one of the biggest reasons I moved to a suite because I was like, I don't want to have to worry about if I left a color tube at the color bar and it's like bothering anybody, you know? Like I just want to like be able to make my own mess and manage that and make everything else clean for the client. So let's say that you sit down with me and and I come to you and I'm like, I think I'm a 5 out of 5 for cleanliness, honey. Like I'm clean as fuck. Like I ate that, no shade. And so then what you would say is you'd be like, okay, so I noticed that you put a 5 down for cleanliness. Would you mind explaining why? Whatever. That's beautiful. Great. Totally get where you're coming from with that. I agree with you on this. Would you mind if I shared with you what my rating would be for you? And then they say, no, go ahead. Okay. So you say, so honestly, I'd probably make this a 3 out of 5. And here are the real examples of why. And I cannot tell you how motherfucking important it is that that you come to somebody with constructive feedback with an example.
Right.
If you just come to them with like some arbitrary idea,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, I can't remember when exactly that happened or whatever it may be, then it's really difficult to actually get your point across because then there's nothing to actually connect to the idea to, right? For it to
Yeah.
click to somebody.
For sure, because behaviors like this, like, are not tied to, like, a tangible like, you can't be like, "Oh, here's the number of Y." Like, it's not like a metric like that, and I think that's such a good point because like we all have different ideas of what clean is even, like, for example, you know what I mean? So, I think that's a really, really important piece of this is, like, being able to illustrate it versus just being like, "You're messy." Like
Dude, yes, thank you so much for bringing that up. So fucking true. And actually, that's why yeah, I love that you said that like it's not a number, right? Like it's not quantifiable. But then it's like, how can we make then the question becomes, can we make this
Yeah.
quantifiable? And so like that would be in this specific conversation, this would be the example, right? Now, going back to how do we set ourselves up from the very beginning, right? Like, what I will do with my mastermind people a lot of the times is I'll actually sit down with their team. Like, we'll have a team meeting with them, and I'm like facilitating this meeting. And we'll go through all the core values together, and each of them will come up with an example of what is a good example of this core value actually coming into play, and what's an example of what does not look like. And so that way they're all hearing this together. They're all like on the same page. And then the salon owner gets to take all of that information, bring it back to the drawing board. And in the employee handbook, there is now pictures and an actual definition of what does cleanliness, our standard of cleanliness, actually look like? What does our standard of an excellent client experience actually look like? And when you document that, and then when you have this cleanliness conversation, you bring up the example versus the documented standard. So then,
Yes.
therefore, there's no human to human miscommunication or
Mm,
resentment. I think
right.
a lot of the times, what we will primarily end up doing is we'll start to blame the person and their ideas when we are brought constructive feedback that we are not taking well. I think
Mm,
we'll often be like, "Oh, she just doesn't fuck with me. Like, she just is like looking out to get to me. She's playing favorites." Like, that's like a lot of the time what will come up.
mhm.
But when it's not about me and you and this personal relationship, it's about look at the book and look at
Yep.
the picture and then look at what you did. There
Right.
is no argument, right?
Exactly.
Like, so this is no longer a personal thing. It's like there is a documented situation that is inarguably against this other thing. And that's why I love data so much, right? Like, and so I love that you brought this up because it's so true. Like, there might not be a number, but there is another way that we can create a documented, inarguable example to be able to compare and contrast the behavior to, you
Yeah.
know?
100%.
The end of this conversation, and this goes back to empowering and facilitating your team to get better by themselves. The end of this conversation goes, so I would rate you a 3 because of this example. Do you see what I'm saying? They'll probably say, yes, I understand what you're saying here. Maybe they'll add an excuse in there to don't listen to the excuses, whatever. Just say, like, okay, so you get that this is the situation. So my question to you is do you have any solutions, or is there anything that I can provide to make it so this gets better by the next one-on-one that we have next month? Notice how I'm not coming up with the ideas. I'm not like throwing any sort of like bullshit at them or whatever it may be. I'm not combating them. I'm allowing them to come to me with the solution. Okay. So I allow this person to come to me with the solution. Maybe they don't have the solution right then and there, or maybe they come up with a shitty one. Okay. Because I like when I ask for my team or my coaching clients, even, I'm like, I don't want to just hear, oh, I guess I just have to be better about X. That is not
Mm,
a fucking solution, bitch. Like,
no.
it's very easy for us when we don't actually have a real idea to just be like, oh, I just have to be better about, and then that nothing changes
Yeah.
and nothing changes. So whenever I hear that, I'm always like, no, I want to hear what is a system that you put into place. Where is the reminder? What is the post-it note? Whatever. I need something fucking tangible. Okay. So if they can't come up with that right then, you can then offer your ideas if you do have ideas. I think that's totally great. But what I would even then some more encourage you to do is then ask them, okay, by the end of this week on Friday, is it okay if I follow up with you and I ask you what your solutions for this is going to be? Could you come up with a solution for this by Friday? Once a solution is agreed upon, you will say, okay, great. Thank you so much for hearing me out today. I'm glad that we're on the same page and I think this is a good plan. The next meeting we have, we are going to follow up on this. Is that okay with you? Yes, great. Next meeting, if nothing changed, you have done everything you can at that point because you have literally, because that person told you what they needed and what they were going to do to actually make this better, and they still haven't. So then what the fuck else can you do, right? They agreed that if this happened, then things would get better. So then at that point, that's when we start to get into performance reviews, and that's when we start to get into discipline and actually managing behavior. And that's when we get to finally decide, is this person the right fit for my space or not? But normally we skip right to that.
Mhm.
Normally, we skip right to managing behavior, enforcing behavior, negative reinforcement. We focus on yelling at people at meetings, trying to make our point. It's a very emotional reaction oftentimes, and it's very easy. I mean, whenever my team messes anything up, it is infuriating. It is absolutely infuriating. I totally get that to my core.
Yeah.
But how much more beautiful of an opportunity for you to step into yourself as a leader and to your leadership role, to then empower them to get even better than you and to come up with their own solutions that may even create a wave of positive change across the entire salon. Like,
Mhm.
how cool is it that conflict can create even more innovation, you know? But
Yeah.
that's only going to happen if you allow your team to come to you with the solution, because otherwise you are going to have to be the one always innovating and you'll never actually be able to take a step back.
I think this is the thing too that burns people out the most when it comes to leadership is that feeling like they're always chasing bad behavior, right? And so, like, I think you touched upon just so many important things here. Number one, making sure people understand the why. Number two, starting with really clear, definable things and making the intangible tangible as much as humanly possible. Like, I think documented processes that you can reference, like you said, takes out that personal thing because this is such a personal industry. Like, with our clients, with our, team members, like it just is so much it's just so interpersonal. And so I think those are the biggest takeaways. And then also that piece of like personal accountability, because so many times, like I think in this industry as creatives, like we're craving growth, personal growth, professional growth. And as a leader, and I've experienced this like in a great way and in a not so great way in the 20 years I've been in the beauty industry, it's like you can have people who are like looking to help you grow and really not criticizing, but really are working on the same things with you. And then people who are just more like punitive in their approach. And the exact same conversation is taken completely differently. So this is such a great conversation. So much good advice.
Yeah. And I know that I've shared, like, we've had this conversation because whenever I talk about this stuff,
Mhm.
the problem is that I'm not a parent, so, like, I don't know what that is or looks like or what the experience looks like. But oftentimes when I talk to parents in this way, a lot of people will draw the similarities back to parenting, right? Of
Mhm.
like the approach of like positive reinforcement instead of negative reinforcement, and allowing
Yeah.
them to kind of take on the challenge, and also
Yes.
facilitating the space for them to actually be successful instead of just being like, figure it out, you know? Would you agree with that as a parent, Jody?
Oh
Not to
my
put you on the
goodness.
spot.
1000%. Like, I think when we were planning this episode, that was the first thing that came up when we were talking about this is how similar it is. And it's so interesting because, like, I mean, I'm sure we all remember being teenagers, right? It's like if you have someone who's like approaching you in a space that's like compassionate and is like wanting to help you be better and like not being overly judgmental, that is going to give you like you're going to react to that so positively versus like when you're parenting, if you are kind of just more in that punitive space, like in my experience, those are the types of parents that ends up with really rebellious teenagers because they just get to a point where they're like, I don't want to be told what to do anymore. I don't understand why you're telling me what to do. You don't get me, right? That's like the biggest thing. And I feel like that's what it comes down to with team members and with clients. It's like if people want to feel seen, heard, understood, and the approaches that you just described are going to do that versus that, like, if you don't do this, then this type situation.
It's like it's not a good, like, long-term sustainable solution, I think. Like, it's like an easy, like, path to Like it may work, right? Like a
Mhm.
punishment may work, like discipline may work, and it does have its place
For sure.
100%.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be the first try. It shouldn't be the first line of offense, right?
Yeah.
This should be last priority. And if it is something you have to put into place, again, this is where you decide, is this person the right fit for this space or not, right?
Yeah, and I think the thing is that like to your point, you're going to have people who are not a good fit as clients, as team members. I think it's unavoidable, right?
Oh yeah.
Or unavoidable. But at least with these types of approaches, at the end of the day, you know that you've done everything you can. You have
Yes.
held up your end of the bargain, and then if they don't hold up their end of the bargain, you can, sleep at night with no regrets on how you could have done things differently.
Yeah, and no question about how do I approach this in which they're not going to be offended. Because if you ask somebody, I even encourage teams and salon owners to do these things too, is like if you approach somebody before all this stuff happens and you say, when I have constructive feedback about something, how would you best receive it? Right. And then having clear standards or an SOP for that person, how you actually approach the feedback, if you approach it the way that the person told you to approach it, then there's no argument about it.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
it's just like there's no like what you again, it's the situation where it's like you have held up your end of the bargain.
Yeah.
My last piece of advice, because we drew the similarity to the kids, and I'm also going to draw the similarity to my relationship right now. I found that what my approach is, and this is great for any type of communication with anybody, is like the approach is just remembering that you're on the same team. Like, and making sure that you always are approaching any sort of these things from that lens and perspective. Because again, it all goes back to the core values. If this person has the same core values as you and the company, then we all generally want the same thing. And so this is for you to be able to empower them and everybody else around them to have what they want. So you are on their team. It's not you versus them. It is us working together to empower them with everything that they need to get them what they actually want or what we can assume that they want. And if you don't have the right person for that, it's going to be very difficult for you guys to have a productive conversation, and you always will be chasing that bad behavior. So I think that honestly, it's like the shitty answer that I always have for a lot of people. The shitty answer is like hire right. And I know I know a lot of the times like we're in a rush to hire, like we just like have more clients than we can handle, or we just want to get this shit taken care of and done. But wasting time and money on a bad hire in the long run is a higher cost
Yeah.
than the opportunity cost of not having somebody filled in that position because you're waiting for the right person
Yeah.
to fill that position.
So I think we've really covered communicating with your team, making sure you're on the same page. And I know we said we were going to also give a little bit of advice for the independent stylist or salon owner or whomever on how they can get clients on board with major changes or things that they're rolling out or pushback on certain things that are important to that service provider.
And again, this goes back to the same situation with a team, with anybody. We are on the same team. Like, this is for me to be able to serve you better, even if it's something with your prices or something that would inherently feel selfish. You have to figure out and remember, because there's always one, what the benefit is for the client. And when you explain that to the client and when you lead with any type of change, with the fact that we are on the same team, this is first and foremost to be able to serve you better. Normally, the response will be a lot more receptive, and then you can have more productive conversations. So it all comes back to that, like the attracting the right people with your core values in your brand, because then you just don't even have to deal with a lot of this bullshit. Like normally, if you attract the right people, normally you don't really have to chase stuff down very much. And then when you do have to chase things down, it's a much more productive and even really powerful and beautiful conversation versus when you have the wrong person who is not aligned, because then it's just a dead end and they may not be the right fit for your business in one way or another.
Yeah.
So I hope that this episode today was helpful for you, my friend, whether you're a team, salon owner, or you're a booth rental salon owner, or you are a stylist with clients and you want to get more aligned with them and get them on board with whatever changes or whatever behavior you're trying to get them to do. So much love to you. Peace out, Girl Scout. Bye bye.